everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel, and long time with no T1D with Maddie episodes. Welcome to T1D number 11, which would have aired on November 1st, 2019, but will be airing sometime in late December, as well as with T1D with Maddie episode number 12, which will also air here at the end of December. And this episode, as you can tell by the title, is more personally, what do I think is going to be a cure for type 1 diabetes? What do I think is going to be the ultimate be-all, end-all to this autoimmune disease if it happens in my lifetime? Now, I particularly don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime, but you never know. I do believe our treatments are going to get really well, that it's almost going to feel like a cure, even if though it really truly isn't a cure, where there won't be some sort of device or implant or something that we won't be hooked up to as a type 1 diabetic. Hence, I wear a continuous glucose monitor and an insulin pump right now to help best manage my blood sugars. Now, depending on who you ask, there's a lot of different research that's going on right now. JDRF is funding research, Beyond Type 1 may be funding research. There's a lot of other organizations that are also funding research for type 1 diabetes, and there's a lot of different ideas that have been passed around back and forth, from giving genetic information to other cells in the pancreas, like alpha cells and delta cells, giving them the information needed to make insulin, giving them the job of making insulin, and therefore they're not going to be attacked by the immune system because they're not recognized as a beta cell. They have a totally different components within them, so we can give them another job, and therefore they can go ahead and make insulin. There's also been things where they implant islet cells or beta cells in the liver or a different organ in the body, maybe even the spleen, and the cells will continue to produce insulin. Again, because they're not in the area of the pancreas beta cells, islet area, in the known specified area, the autoantibodies or the immune system will not be able to attack it. Therefore, insulin will be able to be secreted. Obviously, there's pancreas transplants where we can either grow a whole new pancreas via stem cells, or we can take a pancreas from a donor and be implanted with that pancreas. And that pancreas will function like a non-diabetics and produce insulin. And again, the body won't attack it because it's somebody else's organ. Now, the issue with transplants is rejection over years, and it is costly to try to keep up on anti-rejection medications. So I don't believe that's going to be a cure. I feel like it's going to be something to do with islet cell transplants, like I had mentioned previously, either with islet cell growth in a lab and then they're implanted into a different organ in the body, or we're going to allow another part of the pancreas, the alpha, delta cells, whatever other cells, the enzyme secreting cells, give them a second job of producing insulin and allow the human body to continue to make the insulin it needs. That I think will be the be-all end-all cure. Or there may be a potential ability with stem cells where I could see a lot of stem cell growth in a lab, and again, growing a whole new pancreas. A stem cell, if you don't know what that is a cell that can be turned on like a light switch to be any part of the body. It can be given the right genomes or the right genotypes or genetic codes or information, the right DNA, the right amino acids, can be turned into any cell in the body. We can grow new bones, we can grow new muscles, new nerves, new eyes, new any organ. And if we could grow a whole new pancreas that we can prevent being attacked by the autoantibodies, that would be great. So I foresee some sort of islet cell transplant and growth from laboratories and implanted somewhere else, or we're just going to build whole new pancreases from stem cells and implant them into people. Now, both of these items are probably going to be very, very costly, but I feel like they're probably going to be our best bet for a cure if we're going to continue down that route. But who knows, as more and more research is done with the immuno side of type 1 diabetes, not so much trying to rebuild the actual beta cells and the whole new pancreas, there could be stuff with the actual immune system. They're trying to push different drugs and different types of materials that can suppress the autoantibodies that are present in a type 1 diabetic's blood, that are often tested for at diagnosis to confirm type 1 diabetes. There's 4 main ones. I did talk about them. I am positive for 3 or all 3 of the main ones, I think. Anyways, that these particular drugs and or materials would try to hinder these autoantibodies or just specifically kill that part of the immune system without destroying the whole immune system, so that we get rid of the antibodies that shouldn't be there. And if you destroy those, the actual beta cells that have been destroyed, if there's any sort of life left to them, they can regenerate. My doctor and I were talking about this recently, that type 1 diabetics, they do say, have the ability to produce very small amounts of insulin. Unfortunately, though, the small amounts of insulin we produce cannot control blood glucose levels. Or if we do have some life left to our beta cells, the autoantibodies will very quickly recognize that and begin attacking them. And that's why I feel like for certain times we have random lows. I had one the other night. I couldn't explain it. I had no insulin on board. I was laying on my couch and I had a 55. I had no clue. There was nothing that I could have thought of that could have contributed to this low that stood out to me, like not enough, too much activity, too much insulin. None of that really stood out to me as like, hey, this is why this low happened. She was talking about if you have those really strange, unexplainable lows, it could be that your beta cells for a second kind of regenerated, or were regenerated for a while enough to produce their own insulin to try to regulate your body, trying to naturally regulate your own blood sugar levels like they did before as a non-diabetic. And you got this random low. And if we can suppress the immune system without destroying the whole entire immune system and making type 1 diabetics more immunocompromised, that would be great. Like, we need to be able to just destroy and attack that part of the body. Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of, either it's way too expensive or we don't have quite enough research done in order to specifically destroy those autoantibodies without destroying other important parts of our immune system, like our T cells and our other white blood cells, and that function as good parts of our immune system that should be attacking bacteria and viruses and microorganisms that invade our body on a regular basis to keep our organs and our body safe. I don't think we have quite enough developed skills in order to get to the immunosuppressant type side of it. But that, or the islet cell transplant, is what I foresee as being our future cure. Now, anything to do with islet cell transplant, pancreas transplant, or immunosuppressant, one of those three major categories, in my opinion, will end up being the cure. Where I foresee it, I definitely lean towards the islet cell transplants. Number one, because of the fact that we've been doing a lot of research with it now. Number two, it seems more affordable than suppressing the autoantibodies or getting a whole entire new stem cell grown pancreas. The islet cells, even though they're probably going to be expensive, they're probably a lot cheaper to make on a regular, just to have them produced and implanted into people every so often. Now, the only downfall I've seen with this type of cure is that it really truly isn't a cure unless we can get them to where they're permanently going to stay in the body without them kind of dying off or kind of like getting wore out. I don't know if any of you know about pacemakers of the heart. I knew the lady that passed away. She had a pacemaker, and the battery in the pacemaker only lasts about 10 years, and she outlived 2 batteries in that pacemaker, or almost 2 batteries. She's had 2 operations to replace that battery. So after about 10 years, the battery in a pacemaker wears out. Well, after about 10 years, these islet cell transplants, or these islet cells that are implanted into a person with diabetes body, will eventually be burnt out and need to be replenished. Like a non-diabetic's beta cells might be able to rejuvenate themselves or heal themselves, because we have a synthetic, or I don't want to say synthetic, but a implanted version of those islet cells somewhere, or islet cells implanted in a different area of the body where they're not used to that home environment. Like if they're in the liver, over time they're going to get destroyed. Or kind of get worn out. So every 10 years, we'd probably have to have these transplants or these injections or the surgery or whatever to put these islet cells and restore them back into the body. But to me, that's probably the closest thing we're going to have to a cure, or an actual cure itself. Or if we can find a way to implant them into the body once and have them last decades, more than just a decade, maybe have them last 50 years. And every 50 years, you'd have to have these redone. But at that point, if the cure comes in my lifetime, and say it comes when I'm 30, say it comes in 9 years, if we're lucky at that point, like, which I don't foresee it, it may be a functional cure, because if it's going to last 50 years, I'll be well into my 80s, which at that point I could be passed away from this earth. So it could be a functional cure, who knows? But I do foresee a lot of cures to a lot of different diseases being done from the stem cell side of it also. But that's going to be very expensive. But I feel like if a stem cell can be turned into any part of the body, if it can be turned into a neuron, which are the nerves that control our central nervous system, we could cure a lot of things like ALS and MS and Huntington's, where that's really neural-based diseases that we don't really know a lot about, because we really don't know a whole heck of a lot about the brain. As much as we do know about the brain, there's a lot of stuff we don't know about the brain and the central nervous system. So that is what I believe will be the be-all end-all cure for type 1 diabetes. But until then, I feel like the best cure or closest thing to a cure will be very well controlled closed-loop systems, where we have a continuous glucose monitor and an insulin pump that work simultaneously and automatically regulate blood sugars for us, where we might have to punch in carb numbers or make sure the machine is functioning right. But it'll pretty much be not as manually controlled. Even with me having an insulin pump and a continuous glucose monitor right now, I still have to do a lot of manual control, aka tell the pump how much to give me, aka change my basal rate for X amount of hours, aka change, tell the pump, hey, I'm 213, give me some insulin, and manually regulate my highs and lows, whereas like a closed loop system would be more willing to fluctuate based upon what's happening in the moment and what it predicts it to be. So I'm excited. I think I will be on a closed loop system sooner or later. If I don't create one myself, I will wait until Omnipod comes out with the Horizon system and go from there. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode of T1D with Maddie. And again, if you have any controversial topics that have to revolve around type 1 diabetes, feel free to let me know down below. I will continue this series into the year 2020. As always, I will leave links to research down below so that you can do your own further digging and investigation as to what kind of cures may be coming for type 1 diabetics. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. And until next time for another episode, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye.